They were called heroes, champions of Rome, warriors whose names echoed through the stone walls of the Colosseum. To the roaring crowds, they were larger than life, symbols of strength, courage, and glory. But behind the thunder of applause, there was another story, a darker one. Because for most gladiators, there was nothing glorious about their lives. Before the arena, there were chains. Most gladiators were not volunteers chasing fame. They were slaves, prisoners of war, or men condemned to die. Captured in distant lands, torn from their families, dragged across the empire in iron shackles. When they arrived in Rome, they were no longer citizens. They were property. They were sent to gladiator schools, the ludi. From the outside, these places promised discipline and honor. Inside, they were prisons. Massive gates locked from the outside, cells built of stone, guards watching every movement. Here, they were trained to kill. The training was relentless, hours under the burning sun. Wooden swords swung again and again until muscles trembled and hands bled. Instructors showed no mercy. Weakness was punished. Hesitation was beaten out of them. Injuries were common: broken bones, deep cuts, concussions that never fully healed. Their bodies were shaped not for beauty, but for survival. Their diet was simple and heavy, mostly barley and beans. Cheap food to make them bulkier. A layer of fat could mean the difference between a shallow wound and a fatal one. At night, they slept on straw mats in cramped quarters, chains sometimes still fastened nearby, the air thick with sweat and silence. Some dreamed of freedom. A rare few could earn it, symbolized by a wooden sword called the rudis. But for most, that day never came. And then came the games. The gates would open, blinding sunlight flooding in, the roar of 50,000 spectators crashing down like a wave. This was the moment Rome lived for. Gladiators would stand before the emperor's balcony and salute, not as heroes, but as men who understood that death might be only minutes away. Fear was always there, even for the strongest. The clash of metal against metal echoed across the arena. Shields splintered, blades cut through flesh, sand turned dark with blood. Every movement mattered. Every mistake could be the last. When a fighter fell, the crowd leaned forward. The arena grew tense. The defeated gladiator would look up, not at his opponent, but at the emperor and the people, because his fate was no longer his own. A single gesture from the crowd could decide everything: mercy or execution. Sometimes skilled fighters were spared. They were valuable investments. Training them cost money. Killing them too quickly was bad business. But other times the crowd demanded blood, and Rome gave it to them. The fallen were dragged from the arena with hooks. The sand was raked smooth, and the spectacle continued as if nothing had happened. Not all who entered the arena were trained warriors. Some were criminals condemned to die. Others were prisoners thrown before wild beasts, unarmed, unprotected. For the audience, it was entertainment. For the men in the sand, it was terror. High above, the wealthy elite reclined beneath shaded canopies. They ate, drank, and laughed, untouched by the violence below. For them, the games were a display of power, a reminder that Rome controlled life and death. If a gladiator survived a fight, the suffering did not end. Wounds were stitched in dim underground rooms, pain endured without anesthesia. Infection was common, scars layered over scars. Some became famous, their faces admired, their victories celebrated. Children played in the streets pretending to be gladiators, wooden sticks raised like swords, imagining glory. But the reality was far less romantic. Most gladiators died young. Those who survived long enough to earn freedom often carried broken bodies and haunted minds. They were not mythic heroes. They were men trapped in a system built on spectacle and violence. The Colosseum still stands today, silent, majestic, awe-inspiring. Tourists walk its corridors. They take photos where crowds once screamed for blood. It is easy to admire the architecture, to imagine the drama, to romanticize the bravery. But beneath the stone lies a different truth. The arena was a machine that turned suffering into entertainment, fear into spectacle, human lives into applause. The dark side of the Roman gladiators was not glorious. It was the story of men forced to fight, forced to bleed, and sometimes forced to die, so that an empire could be entertained.
If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more hidden stories from history. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.